Welcome back to another Bali COVID-19 update, and this is for September 26, 2021. And I'm wearing sunglasses today because I'm getting an eye infection. And yeah, well, that's not pleasant. And the hat is my PNG hat, Papua New Guinea, from when I was working as an anthropologist on a cruise ship, taking tourists around villages in Papua New Guinea. Good news on numbers, and let's take a look in some bad news on visas. I'll get to that later. Numbers. The numbers are down again in Bali. The 7-day average for new positive cases dropped to 126. And the 7-day average for deaths is at 13. It's holding steady at 13. New cases in Indonesia, 2,137. Okay, good. And what about the testing in Indonesia? Testing in Indonesia, 181,861 yesterday, 1.18% positive, and the 7-day average for positivity rate, 1.51%, so looking good. What about testing in Bali? Bali tested 36,903 people over the last 7 days, and that was the achievement rate of 133.26%, and the 7-day positivity rate was 2.52%, so not bad. And what about those all-important vaccinations? First dose, 3,305,909, 74.0% of the population, and for the second dose, 2,559,268, 57.3% of the population, and we're moving up towards 70. Is that going to make a difference? I don't know. We'll see. And yesterday, 21,737 additional doses. And what about the numbers for yesterday? New positive cases, 105. Yes. Recoveries, 149. Deaths, 9. So everything's below the average. And active cases in Bali, 1,576. So the numbers are looking good. I like that, especially with tomorrow being Monday. Now, the restrictions were extended for 2 weeks last week, but supposedly they're going to be evaluated for the Bali-Java area, or Java-Bali area, however you want to put it. And so we'll see if there's any announcements tomorrow night. And for those of you who have been trying to use the Peduli Lindungi app, well, no one has yet reported their offshore vaccinations have been verified by any embassy in Indonesia. Embassies that say that they cannot verify vaccinations: Sweden, Germany, France, UK, Belgium, the Netherlands, the US, Canada, Croatia, Austria, Switzerland, Denmark, Brazil, Australia, and New Zealand. And so, I don't know. Countries are going to have to get this together soon so that everything can be coordinated. So the numbers are looking good. Any warning signs? Here's another report on possibilities for the future. Another epidemiologist warning of a possible surge at the end of the year. So an epidemiologist from the University of Indonesian School of Public Health, Iwan Aryawan, said that there's a potential for another surge at the end of the year during the holiday period, because he said long holidays followed by rising people's mobility and poor compliance with health protocols pose a high risk of spike in cases. Additionally, he added that poor case tracking, low coverage of vaccinations, and existence of new virus variants can also boost the number of positive cases. And as you've seen in previous videos, he's not the only epidemiologist in Indonesia warning the government to be prepared for a surge in cases as we move into the holiday season in the next few months. We still have a few months. Pakai said that a third wave could be prevented if the government does not hesitate to rise the public mobility restrictions, the PPKM, in high-risk areas. He said even though we may have up to 50% of the population vaccinated by December, it's still possible that a third wave could exist because vaccines aren't 100% effective, and the vaccine's efficacy can be lowered if there's a new variant. And, well, variants seem to pop up all the time, don't they? That's the way the virus goes. And so another warning for us not to be overly enthusiastic, or what was the word of one minister? Maybe it was Pakai, don't get euphoric. So need to be on the alert. COVID-19 may impair men's sexual performance. This is reported in the National Geographic. And according to South Florida urologist Ramasamy, he observed a trend in COVID patients spread across the U.S. in 2020. And that was more and more men were complaining of having problems in the bedroom. They couldn't perform. Ramasamy said that initially, he and his colleagues thought that this was because of psychological issues, stress from the pandemic. But after interviewing more and more patients, he noticed that most of them were saying they did not have any psychological problems, they weren't feeling anxious or depressed, and for some, the problems lasted longer than 6 months. And so then the team started to suspect that the underlying cause may be the SARS-CoV-2 virus that causes COVID-19. So COVID-19 harms the lungs, but it's also a systemic disease. It can affect the heart, the kidneys, the brain, and other organs, including that organ for men. And these effects can last a long time for some people, usually referred to as long-haul COVID. And as many as 10 to 30% of those infected with the virus experience ongoing debilitating symptoms that may cause significant disability. And among the list of ailments, mounting evidence suggests that COVID-19 may sabotage men's sexual health. We found that men who hadn't previously had these issues developed pretty severe erectile dysfunction after COVID-19 infection, Ramasamy said. Whoa, okay. And according to research published in March, men may be 6 times more likely to develop brief or long-term erectile dysfunction after contracting the virus. Other studies have documented a variety of post-infection health issues that impact sex, either independently or concert. And this is inability to have or maintain an erection, damage to the testes, testicular pains, swelling, inability to achieve orgasm, low testosterone levels, and mental health issues. And so this is the science, and this says, as the article said, this stands in stark contrast to anti-vaccine misinformation spreading online, including a now infamous tweet from rapper Nicki Minaj claiming that COVID-19 vaccines cause swollen testicles and impotence. To date, no studies support that claim, according to the article in National Geographic. Ramasamy said it's important for people to understand that COVID vaccination doesn't affect erectile function. The virus can have significant adverse long-term effects, and the vaccine is safe. The men most at risk for developing severe COVID-19 are older men, me, people with high hypertension, obesity, diabetes, and heart disease, and these are already at high risk for sexual dysfunction. But much younger men also reported sexual health issues. So they discovered that the virus could be lurking in the testicles as well as in penis tissue. Yeah, guys. And a professor of endocrinology at Italy's University of Rome said that according to an online survey of sexually active Italian men who had the virus, they had a 6-fold higher risk of erectile dysfunction post-COVID-19 infection. But how long the symptoms last is not known because the virus is still being studied, and all of this is still being studied. And other issues that have been discovered in these studies: pain in the testicles, a decrease in the size of penis or testicles. Okay guys, you want to take a risk of this? Okay. Maybe it's better that you get vaccinated. Okay, this is a long article, and the link, of course, is down below, like always, if you want to read this. It's very interesting. And so, guys and women, if you have a male partner, you may want to get him vaccinated if he's not. Okay, so we're still in level 3, and well, we're hoping to get down to level 2 so that we could open up. Well, maybe we'll open up at level 3, who knows. But here, PPKM level can't be lowered if vaccination does not hit target, according to Health Ministry spokesman Siti Nadia Tarmizi. She said, since last week, the coverage of the first dose of vaccination, including for the elderly, was added to the indicators of the PPKM level assessment. So this is a new thing that they're adding when they decide what the level is going to be. And I've talked about the other factors involved in what determines what level we're going to be at. So she said the requirements for dropping PPKM level 3 to level 2 must be supported by the coverage of the first dose of vaccination of at least 50% of the general population, and the first dose vaccination for the elderly of at least 40%. And for dropping PPKM from level 2 to level 1, the coverage of the first dose vaccination has to be 70% of the population in general and 60% of the elderly population. And, well, we're a long way from that still. And so how are we doing with vaccinations? Indonesia aims to vaccinate 70% of citizens by the end of the year. So the government's ramping up vaccinations again in a rush to get at least 70% of the population at least partially vaccinated by the end of the year, according to Health Ministry spokesperson Siti Nadia Tarmizi, as I just talked about. Tarmizi said that in order to achieve the target, they're going to have medical units from the military and police, along with vaccinators from the ministry, health ministry, National Population and Family Planning Board, and private hospitals. According to the ministry's vaccination dashboard, only 28% of the targeted 21.5 million elderly citizens have received at least the first dose. Only 28%. So we got a long way to go with the elderly. And according to this article, at least 84 million Indonesians have been partially vaccinated against COVID-19 as of Friday, a couple days ago, representing 40.39% of the target population. And the total number of fully vaccinated citizens stands at 47.3 million, or 22.73%. Okay, we've got a long way to go. If we're going to open up, this is one of the things I think that some people don't understand that are outside, that haven't been to Bali or aren't very familiar with Indonesia. This is just an island. We can't open up by ourselves. The governor can't just say, we're opening up. That has to come from the president, from the central government in Jakarta. And so, are we going to open up if large parts of the population have not been, outside of Bali, have not been vaccinated yet? I don't know. That's the president's call. So we've been looking at how other countries are going about opening up or getting ready to open up. And last time I was talking about Malaysia and how they were looking over at the Thailand Phuket sandbox scheme, and now we have the Philippines also looking at the same thing. The Department of Tourism in the Philippines is looking at Thailand's Phuket sandbox scheme as a model for their opening up. The tourism secretary hopes to either eliminate or reduce the quarantine period for tourists coming to the Philippines by inoculating the entire tourism sector. She said that if the whole tourism sector is inoculated and foreign tourists that are coming in have to be completely vaccinated, there should be no reason to have a lengthy quarantine period, and that they can either reduce the quarantine period or they can eliminate it entirely. According to her, 99% of the Metro Manila hotel staff are already inoculated, and 73% of the tourism sector workers in Boracay Island are also already inoculated, and tourism workers in other areas as well are being vaccinated right now, and that includes Baguio and Palawan. According to the chief operating officer of the Tourism Promotions Board, what tourists really want when they come to the Philippines are outdoor adventures, and so they're ramping up packages to offer to incoming tourists that will focus on outdoor activities. According to the president of the Philippine Tour Operators Association, Tour packages are already being developed for Luzon and Mindanao, among other places. And these will be land travel because of the current problems with air travel. He said, with land travel, we can come out with a lot of packages like heritage tourism, farm tourism, and nature-based tourism. So we've got the Philippines, we've got Thailand, we have Malaysia, and of course Indonesia has already talked about looking at the Phuket sandbox model as well. And so the question is, when are we going to get this going? So we're looking at other countries in the Asia area in general that are opening up or planning to open up. And here's one: PCR test for overseas tourists at the airport starting Saturday, the minister said. So PCR testing at the international airport in Sri Lanka began on Saturday, according to the tourism minister. The PCR testing lab at the airport will report within 3 hours for tourists who arrive. And according to the minister, at least 1,000 tourists arrive in the country every day, and each tourist will be charged $40 by the Tourism Promotions Authority. And then they will get their test. They'll get 3 hours, and the minister said that they will be able to skip the mandatory hotel quarantine process by using testing at the airport. Okay, so this may direct some people to Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka is a cool place. I've only been to Sri Lanka once. I'd love to go there again. And so there's that issue too about if you've been double vaccinated, for example, you're going to have to be to get in, and you take a PCR test at the airport and you test negative, are you going to have to undergo quarantine? Well, right now the answer is yes. When we open up, will the answer change? Because, well, as people have noted here, comments and people on social media, if you're going to have to undergo an 8 or a 14-day quarantine, are you going to want to come to Bali if you've got 3 weeks? Let's forget about the people coming in on B211. Let's say when we open up and people come in and they get a VOA, a visa on arrival, are they going to want to go through a quarantine here? And so is that going to change here? My guess is probably, but that's just a guess. And one more segment on other Asian countries getting ready to open up. Why is this important? Why am I mentioning this? Because as other countries are opening up now or getting in the last stages of preparing to open up, is this going to push Indonesia to get going with opening up? Because, well, I think countries see this as somewhat of a race. Once things open up, where will tourists go? Places that are most advantageous if you just want to take a vacation. If you want to come and live somewhere, maybe Bali has a special meaning for you. But if you're a tourist and let's say you have the possibility of going to India or Sri Lanka or Thailand and they're open and there's no quarantine, well, you might pick that over Indonesia. So that's something to think about when we look at how we're going to go about opening up. South Asia eyes tourism revival with eased restrictions. From the Jakarta Post today. Nepal has restarted visas on arrival for vaccinated tourists as South Asian nations attempt to get ready to open up to revive the tourism business. So Nepal reopened to tourists and scrapped quarantine requirements for vaccinated foreigners on Thursday. And its neighbors are expected to quickly follow. Visitors to Nepal still have to take a test on arrival, and unvaccinated travelers have to quarantine for 10 days. India is reported to soon announce that it will give away 500,000 free tourist visas as it starts to reopen after more than a year. And Bhutan recently let in its first foreign tourist, an American who spent 3 weeks in quarantine. Okay, a long time there. So we can add those places to the other ones that I talked about in the previous 2 segments. So we can add Nepal and India to the countries getting ready, and Bhutan getting ready to open up. And shortly I'll talk about what we're going to do here in Bali. But first, let's take a look at what's happening in Bali. And so what's happening in Bali? Well, a lot of stuff's happening in Bali. And North Bali, South Bali, everywhere. And what about this one? Indonesian tourism minister prohibits selfies without face mask in tourism areas. And so our old friend Pak Sandiaga Uno has stated that despite implementing a strict prevention protocol in the tourism sector, wearing your mask, that there are people taking selfies, not wearing their mask. As we have more and more domestic tourists coming now, that the restrictions have been loosened up, he said it's important that we stress the need to wear a mask at all times. He said one of the weak points on the implementation of prevention protocols at tourism areas is when people take selfies. They tend to take off their face mask, although it's forbidden to do so. And so, if you want to take a selfie, don't take off your face mask. Additionally, he added that there have been some concerns about the QR scanning in tourism areas, and it's got a potential to cause large crowds because there's been a number of problems reported from people trying to get into tourism places, and they've got their phone, they do a scan, and it doesn't work right. And so he said this is a work in progress. And he also explained that the government has given some leniency on the policy about allowing children from 0 to 12 to get into tourism places, and said that children in that age group will be allowed to get in as long as they're supervised by their parent, and that it will be up to the management of tourism attraction places such as shopping malls on whether or not to let them in. And from what I hear, children are getting in with their parents. And he encouraged people to stay alert, comply with the government's instructions, the health and safety protocols, wear a face mask, don't gather in large groups, and so on. We all know the routine by now. Don't forget, no selfies without the face mask. One of my favorite stories, and this one has been going on for years and years and years and years, is the mythical airport in North Bali. And yes, it's back in the news again, even with the pandemic. And so the situation is getting, well, as unclear as it's always been. Why is it unclear? Well, the central government is still can't provide any certainty about the location of the airport. There have been so many schemes over the last few years about the airport, about building an artificial island, putting it over here, putting it over there, and then it looked like it was going to be in Kubutambahan, and that, according to people that I know that live in Kubutambahan, the government was getting ready to begin construction, and then it was stopped. And if I remember right, issues were about who owned the land and about destroying a number of temples in that area. And at that point, it looked really like it was going to be done in Kubutambahan, and there was a lot of land purchases from, well, who knows what sources, according to friends of mine that live there. But then the location was shifted from the east side to the west side, and that was controversial because of villagers who said that their home was going to be destroyed by the government, and they weren't happy with the way things were going. And now we have more people getting involved in this as well, about this plan to relocate the airport to, where is it? Sumber Kelompok village, and this is over in the Grogak area close to Pemutran. In addition to NGOs, now a member of the Bali Provincial DPRD, Commission 3, Juro Nyoman Ray Yusha, is gotten involved in well, and he says that the government needs to review their plan to move the airport over to this village. He said the proposed location of the airport violates a number of things, including the concept of Nanggun Satkerta Loka Bali that's been advanced by Governor Koster. He also said that the building of the airport at Sumber Kelompok is going to cause problems and has the potential to result in crimes against the environment, because the airport is going to be proposed to be built in an area where excessive noise is prohibited. because West Bali National Park is over there. There are a number of protected species, mostly birds, I think, but there's also a lot of monkeys over there. He added, the planned location of the airport is no longer feasible, both geographically and technically, and in that place there are many rare animals that should be protected because of their high value, and they should be guarded against extinction. And he regretted that activities related to the North Bali Airport plan only involved a handful of people without involving elements from all parts of society. He said, economically, it makes more sense to put the airport in the east by Kubatambahan, because the settlement costs are much lower than in the west. Okay, I don't know if that's true. As soon as there's rumors about the airport being built somewhere, of course everybody rushes in and tries to buy up as much land as possible. And Pakai ended and said, it forced all biodiversity will be extinct, and it's clearly not in line with the governor's concept. And so there we have it. More controversy about the airport in North Bali. Will it ever be built? Personally, I hope not. One of the beautiful things about North Bali is that it's relatively unaffected by all the craziness and development down in the south. And that's the attraction for a number of foreigners that move up here, as well as local people who are able to continue their life in traditional ways without the masses of tourists and all the problems that causes. Well, since the COVID-19 restrictions eased, according to an article in Coconuts a few days ago, thousands of domestic tourists are visiting Bali as restrictions ease and cases decline in the province. And the island's beaches are the most frequented by tourists, according to Bali Tourism Agency Chief Putu Astawa. He said, if we're looking from the airport arrivals, right now it's at 4,300 travelers per day on the average. So wow, the number is way up. Back in June it was 700 to 800 a day, June and July. Astawa said that the beaches in Kuta Lagin and Pandawa are among the most frequently visited places at this time. And so there have been crowds reported there, and this is one of the reasons that the officials are coming up with the odd even traffic regulations. And how is that going to work? I don't know. Remember the other day I said it's possible that it would start on the 25th, which is yesterday. I haven't heard any news yet if it started, but maybe by the time I upload this I will. But they also said it could wait until the governor issues a circular on the situation. We have domestic tourists coming back again in numbers, and that can only be positive in terms of the economy. In terms of the virus, I don't know. And in the last video I was talking about, no, the airport is not open, that there's only 2 airports you can come into, the one in Manado and the one in Jakarta. Well, the Bali vice governor wants Ngurah Rai airport to open for international flights. So he was upset that the central government did not add Ngurah Rai to the airports accepting international arrivals. He said that because Bali has been going through all the protocols, the airport's gone through all their protocols, Ngurah Rai should have been added to the list of airports open for arrival. And of course this would mean then that you could do your quarantine here, and so some more money is coming in and makes things a little easier for people flying in on the B211s who don't want to stay in Jakarta, who are not actually business people in Jakarta. Maybe they're business people in Bali, maybe not, I don't know. But they can fly directly, well, they can fly directly into Bali and do their quarantine here and then go off on their vacation or whatever they're going to do. The vice governor said that he hopes that the central government will review their decision and make Bali into a quarantine destination for international arrivals. And so, well, he's asked before and apparently nobody is listening. Now, here's an interesting story. I was watching the monkeys video the other day, and I've talked about the monkeys video, and here's a link to this one. Ikea. Okay, so I've never been to Ikea. I only know about it from from jokes mostly about it, or from seeing ads and things. But apparently Ikea may move to Bali, or is moving to Bali. And so, well, I don't know. Mr. Monkey was walking around looking for an Ikea shop and to see if he could find out where it was going to be. Earlier this week, a number of community accounts across social media posted what appears to be an ongoing renovation project in Kuta, and with a small but still legible print of the Ikea logo on the store window visible for passersby to see. Now at this point, there's been no official announcement. The project is located in a building that's formerly housed a giant supermarket. So PT Hero Supermarket, which operates both retail businesses in Indonesia, announced that 5 of their giant stores will be transformed into new Ikea stores. And so I guess so there was a giant store here, a giant supermarket. Okay, I missed that. So it's possible that Ikea is going to be down in Kuta sometime in the future. And what about that? So they make furniture, right? Cheap furniture, I think, that you put together by yourself. Is that right? I think so. I'm not really sure. So how do people feel about Ikea coming to Bali? Well, some people think it's great. It's more business, that they like Ikea. It's cheap. Other people, one user wrote on Facebook, quoted here in the article, "Why would you bother with terrible cheap Ikea furniture when Balinese furniture is 100% better?" Right? So I don't think I'd be buying any. We buy local furniture. I got this nice bed here made out of teak, which is super heavy and is nice. I probably wouldn't shop there, but some people could. And I guess there's Swedish meatballs and mashed potatoes there. So they have food too. Okay. So interesting. Somebody asked me the other day from South Korea, a friend of mine, if Ikea was here, and I said no. So maybe there will be. Okay, when will we open up? Right, questions. Well, according to this article, and this has been reported in a number of different news sources around Indonesia, and I'm taking this one is from, I don't know which one it is. The link's down below. This is the most complete one. So Bali tourism planned to open in October. So to measure Bali's readiness, the Minister of Tourism and Creative Economy, our friend Sandiaga had a coordination meeting about the opening of Bali Friday. The meeting was attended by the Deputy Governor and a number of related stakeholders. And they discussed plans to open up Bali, and these are going to be talked about again in a meeting on September 30th with the Coordinating Minister for Maritime Affairs and Investment, Pakai. According to Pakai, the meeting on the 30th is going to have a decision that will be made on opening Bali or on the next step for opening Bali. The Deputy Governor reported during this meeting that conditions were conducive to opening up in Bali. But he said, according to the direction of Pakai, we'll make preparations for October. Bali ready? Well, health protocols seem to be in place, according to the government, and the situation with COVID-19 is improving. Our numbers continue to go down, and the Peduli Lindungi app is in place, although there's still some tweaks that need to be done in order to get people's vaccinations inputted, and apparently there's some problems with scanning QR codes. All that can be worked out soon. Also discussed were preparations for adaptation tour packages. And so this is going to be part of this trial, these adaptation tour packages, such as booster vaccine tour packages, adaptation tour packages related to expansion of the green zone. These will be done in collaboration with people who are involved in the tourist industry in Bali. Pakai said the government is going to prioritize employment because of the dire situation in terms of jobs and job losses here. He said this will be a priority, and one of the packages that we've conveyed to the Deputy Governor is a vacation package for health workers. And this is to be immediately used for the industry in Bali so that this program is right on target, right benefits, and on time. So apparently this healthcare package is a part of the National Economic Recovery Program, and awards are going to be given to health workers who've struggled during this period. Pakuno said that he hoped that the healthcare workers would use a staycation in Bali as a facility to rest and rejuvenate. The deputy governor took an active part, of course, during these meetings, but he said that while it's estimated that Bali tourism will open in October, there's no exact date available for confirmation. And he said that his party will continue to monitor and increase vigilance in the field, but that he hopes that this issue is not going to be just a black and white, a yes or no, but that there'll be a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C. And how did he explain that? What is the plan A, plan B, and plan C? Well, he said that if conditions are good, how much area is going to be opened in Bali? And what about conditions if they're not so good? Will we be able to open up partially in Bali? And what about the worst conditions? I guess that's plan C. So he said that there's levels that have to be explored, and regarding objects, tourist objects, quarantine, which is going to be a big issue, and accommodation places where people are going to be saved, and of course the green zones. And the deputy governor added that he hopes that quality and sustainable nature and culture-based tourism will become the theme for opening up after the pandemic. And we'll discuss this a little more in the wrap-up coming shortly after this last segment on changes in visas and visa renewals, applications for visas and visa renewals. And this is important, and it stirred up, some complaints from people that are here onshore and people that are offshore. First, let's take a look at the new rules for visit visas for foreigners outside the country. These were changed on September 24th, a couple of days ago. So let's take a look at the requirements for a visit visa submitted outside the country. You're going to need a passport that's valid for at least 6 months, a guarantee letter from the guarantor, and proof of having living expenses for yourself and your family with an amount of at least $2,000, the equivalent, a return ticket or a pass to another country, color passport photos, evidence of having received the full dose of COVID-19. So yes, you have to be vaccinated to submit an application. A statement letter that you are willing to comply with all health protocols in Indonesia, and finally, proof of ownership of health insurance or travel insurance that includes health financing, as well as a statement letter willing to pay independently all medical costs if exposed to COVID-19 while in Indonesia. So now you have to have health insurance. So the big difference here is you have to have health insurance and a statement that you'll cover costs. Before it was you could have either or. And what about if you are submitting an application inside the country so a renewal, for example, or for a new one, foreigners holding visit stay permits whose validity period has expired and cannot be extended and have not been able to return to their home countries may apply for a visit visa. Visa applications have to be made before the stay permit is expired. And what are the requirements for this? A passport that's still valid for 6 months, the guarantee letter, proof of living expenses, right? Same thing, return ticket, evidence of having received the full dose of COVID-19. So if you are here and you're on a B211, for example, and it's about to expire and you need to renew it, get a new one, you're going to have to prove that you've had the full dose of COVID-19. Now that can be a problem. We'll talk about that in a minute. And the statement letter and proof of ownership of health insurance, etc. So those are all the same. The big difference here is that you have to show that you've been given a full dose. So if you're here and you haven't been able to get the vaccine and that has been a problem, what can you do? Okay. According to Jackie Pomeroy's Bali COVID site, and you should take a look at this. And I get all of my numbers for everyone from Jackie's site, and she does an incredible job of coming up and crunching the numbers, and so I always take that from there. And on her site, there's the Telegram group, which I put a link to before. So if you are here on a B211 and you can't get a vaccination, you can take a look at that, and the link is down below under Telegram group. And here's something new. B211 visa holders are reporting getting their first shots recently at Puskesmas Timur Denpasar 2 if you're a resident of Denpasar. And some people have also been able to get paid Gotong Royong plan, and well, that seems to fluctuate according to the Bali Covid-19 group, according to available supplies. And so if you are B211 and you want to get vaccinated, or you want to stay here, you're going to have to get vaccinated whether you want to or not. You can take a look at this Telegram group, and you should be able to find some information there, because this is all they do. They focus right on that. Okay, so good luck if you are here on a B211 and you're going to need to get a vaccine, the vaccination. Good luck with that. And you should get started early. Don't put this off until the end like a lot of people seem to be doing and then complain about it. Okay, time for a wrap-up. What do we see? Numbers are looking good. Tomorrow is Monday. Is there going to be an announcement, even though the government extended last time the PPKM for 2 weeks? Will somebody, Pak Luhut or the president, get on the YouTube account and say something? I don't know. We'll have to see what happens tomorrow night. Other countries around Asia seem to be in a push to open up as quickly as possible, or have already opened up. And so where does that leave Indonesia? Do they want to be the last country to open up? I've got a feeling that all this opening up is going to give the government a push to get open quickly. So what about the October? Now we've heard October before, right? And so this goes back and forth. And as a friend of mine said yesterday, I don't know. I don't even listen anymore. I'll believe it when it opens up. And that's pretty much my attitude at this point too. I'll believe it when I see it happen. When they say tomorrow we're going to open up. Now we know that immigration officials have been sent to all these airports around the country, including Ngurah Rai here in Bali. They should be ready to go once the word is given. What is the plan? Is there going to be a quarantine when you get in or not? If there's a quarantine, that could be a deal breaker for a lot of tourists who want to come here on a short stay. We'll have to see what's going to happen. So at this point, you're going to have to be double vaccinated. You'll be tested most likely on arrival, as is being done right now at the airport. And then if you're negative, what's going to happen? Are we going to go with the green zone, and so you'll be restricted to a green zone? Let's say you want to go to Sanur and you come in. Will you be free to wander around, not have quarantine if you're negative and you've got the full vax proof? Can you wander around Sanur, but you have to stay there? Or will you be able to wander around Sanur, and then let's say you want to go to Ubud, another one of the original green zone areas. Can you get in a vehicle and drive over there and not stop on the way in a non-green zone area? I don't know. Those are all things that, well, beyond my understanding. The government will make some decision on this. Could things change here? Yes, they could change instantly. They often change instantly. Something happens and it just pops out. What about the odd even driving? I don't know. I haven't heard anything about that it started yet. There's been no news on that. And I talked to my children who were down south, and they said nothing's happening in terms of that. Okay, so overall, really good news again. The numbers look good. We have to remember, as the government reminds us over and over again, to stick with the protocols, wear a mask, social distance as much as possible in Indonesia. Get the Peduli Lindungi app so you can get into the tourist places and the malls and I guess the beaches. I don't know. We're going to see. Now, there was a comment on the last video about schools opening up in Ghana already. Here in Singaraja, still no word. Talked to the school the other day, and we haven't heard anything. So if you have kids or grandkids or friends who have kids and they're in school or they've heard that school is not going to open yet, leave a comment because, you know, I'm very personally involved in this issue. So that's it for this video. Thanks for viewing. Stay safe. Be kind to someone today. Wear your mask. Get vaccinated. I appreciate the thumbs up and subscribers. I'll see you on Wednesday.